fighting works. Trayvon Martin's case would not be on trial if we had not rallied and did what we did.
Indeed.
Thank you, Joanne. See you soon. Let me take myself on out of here. Let me thank executive producer Fatim Muhammad, technical producer Lee Majors. Let me thank all of you that listened. Don't forget tonight and every night, Monday through Friday, Politics Nation with Al Sharpton, live 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 o'clock Central Time on MSNBC. And remember, whatever you do, wherever you go, however you feel, tell somebody. Reverend Al told you personally, keep it real. Keep it real. Keep it real. Talk to you tomorrow.
The views and opinions expressed on this broadcast are not necessarily those of either WGCV 620 AM, its staff or management, or our parent company, Glory Communications Incorporated.
Get ready. Armstrong Williams is up next on WGCV 620 AM, where knowledge is power.
For almost 10 years, I've been a lineman for the power company. I know that service is important. That's why I also serve in the Coast Guard Reserve. Our crews respond to rising floodwaters in the Midwest, oil spills in the Gulf of Mexico, and disasters like the Haiti earthquake. The Coast Guard Reserve is a challenge I gladly take on because my country needs me.
If you were born ready, learn more at gocoastguard.com.
Sponsored by the United States Coast Guard in cooperation with the South Carolina Broadcasters Association and this station.
This is Al Sharpton. I'm keeping it real on WGCV 620 AM, KC, Columbia, where knowledge is power.
Good God! I got to ask you what we need. Soul food. Henry Soul Food. No, we need it. Soul Food. Henry Soul Food. No, I like it. Soul Food. Henry Soul Food. No, we need it. Soul Food. Henry Soul Food. Hit me.
Home of the sweet potato pie. Even the keenest taste buds will tell you the best food on the planet. Large enough to serve you and small enough to know you. So get the Henrys at 5431 Indian Head Highway, Oxon Hill, Maryland, or give us a call at 301-749-6856.
Soul food. Henry Soul Food. What we need. Soul food. Henry Soul Food.
Welcome to the Armstrong Williams Show, brought to you by Golden Crust Bakery, the fastest growing Caribbean-owned franchise in the United States. Golden Crust is committed to the delivery of quality food and excellent customer service. Visit them today at goldencrustbakery.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Armstrong Williams Show. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, this week, March 19th, we celebrated the 10-year initiation of the shock and awe U.S.-led bombardment of Iraq, which was implemented on March 19, 2003. Gregg Barrett will be joining us shortly to discuss the Gospel of Rutbah, and he's to talk about the real-life events in Iraq that have redefined the idea of enemy. Let me welcome Gregg Barrett to the show, a former newspaper and wire correspondent and author of the Gospel of Rutbah. The book examines the U.S. military-industrial complex and the lives of peacemakers in pre-war and war-torn Iraq. Gregg, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Armstrong.
You know, I'm always curious as to why when we're talking about the casualties of war that contractors are never accounted for?
You mean contractor fatalities and such?
Of course.
Yeah. I don't believe we were counting Iraqi civilian deaths either, were we?
And why?
I have no idea. You tell me.
Oh, come on. You have an answer. You have a theory.
I mean, we've got people who have been tracking estimates and whatnot, but I think it's very hard to know. I'll give you one anecdote. Major James Cavrillis out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky, he accidentally bombed Rutba General Hospital. They were targeting an ammo depot next to the hospital. Secondary explosions burned down the hospital. They were fighting the Fedayeen from a distance for 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. They were in heavy fighting. They had no way of knowing civilian casualties. He didn't know. I interviewed him here in Arlington, and he doesn't know. He didn't know that 2 people, for instance, died in Rutba General Hospital that night. A father and son. The children's ward burned. He didn't know. I think that in war is messy and chaotic, and these things are hard to track.
Listen, what did we gain versus what it cost us now that you can reflect back 10 years later?
What did we gain?
Versus what we lost, and was it worth it?
You're talking to someone who advocates the other position.
I'm talking to someone.
Anything. I think we gained a lot of hostility.
I am talking to someone that we invited on this show to give a true perspective, and it's your perspective that we want. On my shows, there's no agenda except the truth.
I don't think we gained anything.
And tell us why.
I think that we invaded a sovereign Islamic country. I think we went in there calling it preemptive war, which is an oxymoron. Preemptive war is war. I think we went in there looking or swearing, promising that there was WMD, and we really didn't find significant evidence of that. I think it was a big, big mistake, and the reason I'm working so hard these days is I'm hoping we don't repeat it.
Repeat it where?
Iran, Syria, North Korea.
What lessons can we take from Iraq that we should not repeat and learn from in these places you just mentioned?
What lessons can we take? We can downsize our military and stop trying to police the world. We can build an economy that is less reliant on the military-industrial complex. We can build an economy that doesn't export so many things that blow up and so many violent weapons. We can try to live peacefully. We can try to live as Christians instead of invading other countries and dropping, on average, at the start of this war, we were dropping 941 bombs a day on Iraq. That boggles the mind. A Christian majority nation invaded an Islamic nation and dropped 941 bombs a day on the theory that it was fighting terrorism. The war, it was part of the war on terror. War on terror is terror, and those people were terrorized.
You know, I guess you would say that the president has kept a campaign promise and that most Americans are tired of sending their money, their sons, and even their daughters to Iraq, and most who haven't spent money or blood are tired of hearing about it. And we know that the Iraqis have been trying to elbow us out for years and hope to regain a measure of sovereignty and respect when we're finally gone. Will we ever be gone? Can they gain that respect? Can they be viable again? What price have they ultimately suffered from the invasion?
That's such a broad question. It depends on where you're talking about. There are people who have gained largely from the invasion. There are Iraqis who are living large today. There is a 1%, if you want to call it that, in Iraq today. Another anecdote. Rutpa General Hospital was rebuilt. It's got a nice surgical theater now. It's a nice complex. I was there just 3 years ago. But it has no reliable electricity. So you can't store blood there. You can't store blood if you can't keep it refrigerated. And therefore the surgical theater goes unused. The hospital isn't a hospital. It's a clinic. So people have to, you got tens of thousands of Iraqis who have to drive to the nearest hospital. That hospital is 195 miles east in Ramadi. The reason for that, and it took a lot of digging everybody there thinks it's because of the war. That because the special forces bombed that hospital, 10 years later, they still don't have a hospital. So they blame America for that. And in some respects, they're right, but it's very indirect. The reason that hospital is not functioning and doesn't have reliable electricity is because you have some Iraqis who are now wealthy, are benefiting greatly from this new freedom, and they have built, I've seen these neighborhoods, they've built large houses on the outskirts of Rutba, with all the trimmings of satellite dishes and new dishwashers and everything else that comes with prosperity. And they're draining the power from the city grid. The city grid has doubled its capacity, its wattage, but it cannot sustain all this new growth. And therefore, the hospital cannot refrigerate blood. So that's why. So you have some Iraqis who are happy and are living large and have a prosperity that they didn't have under Saddam.
But what about the masses, the people who were given this hope that things would be better, that life would change, the infrastructure would change, they would have more freedom, more movement, more power?
I'm not sure they ever believed it, the ones I talked to. I'm not sure that's what they expected. I was in pre-war Iraq. I was there right before the bombings, and I know of families who were so frightened they had their children, 11, 12, 13, wetting the bed again, and this was before the war even started. This was just when the Pentagon was promising that there would be nowhere to hide in Baghdad and that we would shock and awe them. I don't think the people were sitting there waiting and like it was Christmas Eve, like they were about to experience this new freedom. I think they were just frightened and didn't want the war.
What is it? Tell us about your book, what you've written, The Gospel of Rutba. Talk about that, please, and help us redefine the idea of enemy.
Yeah. Well, what you had these Christian peacemakers who went to Iraq to reside alongside the everyday Iraqis. They believed that if their country was going to bomb another country, and especially an Islamic country, that they didn't want, they didn't feel that they could sit at home and watch it on CNN, that they were going to go there and endure it with them. Now, as a reporter, I had heard of these human shields and these nuts who were suicidal, so I checked it out and ended up going to Baghdad with them. Not during shock and awe, mind you, but I was there in January and February with them. And they're not suicidal, and they weren't human shields. They were simply some of the best diplomats or ambassadors for this country and for the church that I'd ever met. And they lived with they were friends with Iraqis and wanted to say, we're sorry that this is going to happen. The everyday Iraqi was going to suffer the most.
Hold that point. Hold that point. This is a very important discussion. Shock and awe in remembrance. Bombardment of Iraq. Gregg Barrett.
Say bye-bye burgers, pass on the pizza, forget the francs. Anytime is party time. Discover Golden Cross's authentic Jamaican-style patties. Beef, chicken, vegetables, soya, spinach, and shrimp. Feast on our great taste sensations. Jerk chicken, oxtail, sliced fish, and much more. Savor the taste of the Caribbean. Only at a Golden Cross near you. A family tradition since 1949. GoldenCrossBakery.com.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams. What does it mean to be conservative? Freedom of speech, freedom of free enterprise, freedom of assembly, less government, less taxes. As a matter of fact, a flat tax. Everyone should pay proportional tax. It doesn't matter whether you make $100 million or $10,000. Everyone should pay their 10%. Everyone should have something at stake in this American economy. I'm Armstrong Williams expressing what we mean by conservative traditional value.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Hi, this is Armstrong Williams with an opportunity to own a piece of paradise in Nassau, Bahamas. Spectacular land prices, 8,000 square feet, 20,000 square feet lot, affordable prices, hilltop properties with views of the magnificent sea. Just call 242-677-3120 or 3121 or go to info@rightsidewire.com and leave your information.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
And welcome back to the Armstrong Williams Show. So talk to us about the gospel of Rutbah and redefine the idea of enemy for us.
Well, the Christian peacemakers that were living there with the locals in Baghdad, you had some of them who had their visas revoked 9 days into the war because they were seen taking photos. The Ba'athist regime, that was a big no-no, and they asked them to leave the country because they couldn't trust them at that point. They felt that maybe they could be sending the photos back to the U.S. military. So they drove the long highway from Baghdad to Amman, to Jordan, and they're driving through the war now on March 29th, 2003, and it's a very dangerous time, and cars are burned out on the side of the road, and there's from 941 bombs on average per day. There's a lot of debris in the highway, some of it unexploded, and as they were 83 miles from the Jordanian border, almost to safety, the car ran over something that burst the back left tire. I don't know if it's something that blew up. They don't know, but it blew a big hole in the tire, and the car careened off the highway, flipped, and went into a ditch. 3 of the Christian peacemakers, Shane Claiborne from Philadelphia, the founder of the Simple Way, Weldon Nicely, a Mennonite minister from Seattle, and Cliff Kendi, a farmer from Indiana, and a Christian Peacemaker Team's veteran. They were all injured. Cliff and Weldon very badly, critically. And they were worried at that point that here they are, stranded in a war zone, and if Iraqis see them, they'll be the ones who are seen as the terrorists, and they could be kidnapped and killed. First car to come along the highway is speeding east into the war, toward Baghdad. And it sees them and stops, and 3 Iraqi men jump out, and they rescue them. Instead of kidnapping them, they rescue them. and they bring them to the nearest town, and the nearest town is Rutba, 6 miles away. It's the only city of any size in the western Al Anbar province of Iraq. And as such, it is a hub of the Ba'athist regime. And also at that time, the Fedayeen, the elite Iraqi Fedayeen fighters, are entrenched there fighting Major Cabrillas' unit from Fort Campbell, Special Forces. When they arrive in town, where there is the Iraqi guys who rescued them, bring them to Rutba because it's the only hospital for 195 miles. But they get there and find out that 3 days earlier, on March 26th, the hospital was burned to the ground by accident by this Special Forces unit. So they're taken to a clinic instead, and the clinic has no running water, no electricity, and the director of Rutba General is running the clinic now, trying to help Iraqis who are injured or sick or whatever. And you have a physician's assistant, Jassim Mohammed Jamil. You have a nurse, Tariq Ali Marzouk, and you have an ambulance driver, Saeed Rashid. And instead of attacking the Americans or refusing to help the Americans, they welcome the Americans. Dr. Farouk says when he finds out they're everyday Americans and that they're there to live peacefully among the Iraqis, he says, you don't have to worry about being in Rutba. We will take care of you. We don't care if you're American or Iraqi, Christian or Muslim, you're our people, and we will take care of you. And they did. They patched up the Americans. They stitched Cliff Kennedy's head back together. His scalp was split wide open. He was bleeding profusely. Well done nicely. They got him stabilized. He had a broken sternum, a broken shoulder, a broken thumb, and various other internal injuries. They got him stabilized. And as they were leaving, the Americans were leaving, Shane Claiborne collected up all the money that they had, a big stack of Iraqi dinar, which wasn't worth a whole lot in U.S. money, but at that time for the Iraqis still carried some significant value. And he tried to give it to Dr. Farouk Abdelami. And Dr. Farouk said, we don't want your money. That's not why we did this. He was appalled, actually, at the offer. He told Shane to keep the money, but go and tell the world about Rutba. And what he meant by that was tell the world that we can meet on common ground, that when we do meet on common ground, we're all humans. We share this blue sky. We share a God, whether you want to call it God or Allah or whatever. We share a maker. We share we share this rock, this planet. And as Muslims and Christians and Jews, we share our heritage back to Abraham, you could say. So go and tell the world about Rutba, that we're just humans, and we have a lot more in common than we don't, And when I report these stories, I've been a journalist for a long time, and I've been in a lot of what I say cordoned off corners of this world. But that's what I've found 9.9 times out of 10 is that people, when you just meet them on common ground and look them in the eye, you see a reflection of yourself.
You see your own humanity. You see your own humanity.
Exactly. When you can step outside these political affiliations and these religious fraternities and this nationalism and all these other things that divide us, really you see that nothing should be dividing us. That we're all alike.
You're not distracted, are you?
No, actually, that's a cell phone that's not even my own.
Well, keep talking. Ignore the cell phone. We're engaged with you, please.
No, okay. And so we went back to Rutba in 2010. When I heard this story, it resonated with me because these were the types of Iraqis that I had met in 2003 when I went there in January and February. I went there in January and February. At the time, we had 492,877 soldiers amassed at the border, ready to invade. We had cruise missiles already dialed in from Baghdad. We knew the war was going to start. We just didn't know when. And I went there to report from the streets. I went there with the peacemakers because I didn't want to be embedded with the military, and I didn't want to be embedded with the Ba'athist regime. And by that I mean I didn't want to be credentialed as a journalist under Saddam and have his minders perched on every interview I was doing. I wanted to wander around unattached with the peacemakers or whatever, but unattached to the Baptist regime or anything else. And I figured that as an American coming into that country that I would be cursed at and maybe spit on and maybe worse, maybe beaten. And it was just the complete opposite. I was hosted. I was fed. I was treated with respect because I was given respect maybe. And it was counterintuitive to everything I was hearing back home. And so when I heard the story of Ruthva, I wanted to tell it. I wanted to help them tell the story of Ruthva and to help further this sensibility that we don't have to kill each other. We can help one another. There's a guy in our talks. We've given talks in New York City and D.C. last night. We had a big turnout. And there's a guy at the end, Jeremy Courtney. He lives in Iraq. He's an American from Texas living in Iraq. And he's founded the Preemptive Love Coalition, you know. And the Preemptive Love Coalition is helping children, Iraqi kids who have deformed hearts to get heart surgery. Because through all of Saddam's poisons and war with Kuwait and Iran and then the U.S. bombings of Iraq, there are, for whatever reasons, there's a lot of chemicals floating around and in the ground in Iraq. And children are being born, some estimates as many as 1 in 7 are being born with defective hearts. And so he is helping Iraqi children get surgeries. And these surgeries are occurring, some of them in Israel. And there was a fatwa taken out by a radical Islamist cleric there in Iraq against Jeremy and his coalition because they were afraid that if they allow Iraqi children with defective hearts to be treated and cared for and possibly healed by Americans and Israelis, Christians and Jews, that quote unquote our kids will grow up to love the enemy. And Jeremy at first was concerned about the fatwa, but then he realized that he should be encouraged by it because that's exactly what they've been saying. That if we show our enemies, our so-called enemies, love, then they will learn to love us rather than fear us or hate us. And so there is another way. After 9/11, instead of bombing, of course Iraq had nothing to do with 9/11, but instead of bombing these countries, maybe we could find ways to help these countries and build relationships with these countries. Maybe we could have used that $1 trillion plus if we were going to do it. If we were going to spend that much, we could use millions and trillions of dollars to help other people rather than to bomb the countries and then spend all this money to rebuild those countries. There's a whole lot of bloodshed that comes in the wake of these bombings. Shock and awe is shock and awful. It's shockingly awful.
You know what is amazing for them to go from one brutality to another brutality, which seems to be even worse than the conditions they were subjected to.
How so? You mean the Iraqis?
The Iraqis, yes.
Yeah. I mean, in Basra, I was listening to a BBC report, and I was in Basra in 2003, and Saddam had neglected Basra ever since the Gulf War because you had some Shia down there who rose up to try and rebel and overthrow him after the Gulf War. And
listen,
there's a lot of history.
How do they get a copy of the book? I'm sorry we're out of time. We've got to have you back. How do they get a copy of the book?
You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at Barnes & Noble. You can get it at GreggBarrett.org. You can get it at thegospelofruthva.com, RUTBA.com. Gospel of Ruthva.
Thank you for joining us, and all the best, my man. All the best. Terrific.
For more information on the Armstrong-Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, Stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Life is full of unexpected changes. Everyone has potential to do wrong. And when they choose to do it, contact the Bucksell Group for your private investigation needs. TheBucksellGroup.com or by phone at 202-243-9746. Whether there's an instance of a cheating spouse, child custody, process service, or security, don't continue suspecting. Get closure so that you can move on with your life. Visit TheBucksellGroup.com now or call 202-243-9746. If you think it's happening, it probably is.
To travelers along the road of life who have fallen asleep at the wheel, to the many who woke up in time to avert disaster and get back on the righteous path. For the ones who crashed and survived and now adhere vigilantly to a virtuous and righteous path. Finally, Armstrong Williams' much-anticipated new book, Reawakening Virtues, gives his insights into these daily challenges and much more. Reawakening Virtues is available in bookstores and at Amazon.com.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Most Americans simply have never been taught the basics of money management, let alone how to secure their financial future. But there is hope. Financial Education and Literacy Advisors, also known as FELA, does what others don't. FELA teaches financial education. If you'd like more information about providing a financial wellness program for your employees, or a credit-bearing college course in personal finance, or other valuable programs, please visit myfela.com. That's myfela.com, or send an email to info@myfela.com.
Elder Chicks is an exciting part of the fastest growing segment of the population. Women in their 70s, 80s, and older who are mastering the art of a senior life. We're no longer unseen and unheard. We're providing role models for each other and the baby boomers who are fast approaching retirement. Join our virtual community. Hit www.elderchicks.com on your computer keyboard.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
And welcome back to the show, and thank you so much for joining us for this edition of the Armstrong Williams Show. You know, it is heartwarming to hear stories how people overcome some of the worst of situations, and you never know what you're getting until you actually get it and get a chance to experience it. And you know what? There was a time when I was such an advocate for the war in Iraq, but that time certainly has passed. I don't feel under any conditions should we or anybody else have the right to go in and topple sovereign heads, whether it's Iraq, whether it's Libya. It doesn't matter. These people are heads of states, and we don't have a right to go in just because we don't like their politics and like their policies to go in and just overthrow them. And so I think there are so many lessons that we can learn from the Iraqi situation. Our guest that was just on just did a remarkable job. I really encourage you to go out and get a copy of this book, The Gospel of Rutba. It's an amazing book. It's an amazing story, and it's just you know what? You only elevate yourself when you read and expose yourself to new information. And especially how these Iraqis actually live and how they endure and how they're such a resilient people. Some of these stories are just touching and very heartwarming. And you just ask yourself, how is it that people can survive these kinds of circumstances? But it's amazing what we learn about ourselves when we face some of the harshest and most challenging and difficult times in our lives, what we're able to find within ourselves with our faith in God and the belief that things can get better and that we have what is necessary within us to overcome. You know, our phone lines are open at 1-866-620-6620 and 1-803-733-5620. And we are definitely streaming live at www.livestream.com/Armstrong Williams. And you can always email us at info@rightsidewire.com. Coming up next, hopefully, is Brian Balfour, who's Director of Policy and Operations. He will be joining us to talk about the issues of more jobs, bigger paychecks, a pro-growth tax reform for his state of North Carolina. Because you know that North Carolina was once a growth champion of the national economy. Between 1981 and 1999, its average personal income growth was the fourth fastest in the country. But since 2000, North Carolina's personal income growth premium relative to the national average has significantly slowed. And so average personal income has been the 26th fastest in the nation between 2000 and 2011. And the change in North Carolina's economic fortunes is visible across many different economic measures, especially across these United States. So we're going to talk with Mr. Balfour when he joins us later on in the broadcast. But you know, we want to talk about what are your thoughts about Iraq? Do you think that President Bush was correct as you look at the situation so many years later? Did he make the right decision to go into Iraq? Was it the right decision? Was it a bad decision? What did we really gain? So many casualties. So many families shattered, so much destruction in Iraq. They don't even account for the number of lives that were lost there. They don't even account for the number of contractors that lost their lives. And so the bottom line is this. You know, what do we gain from these wars and these conflicts? And when is war really justified? When is it really, really justified, where you're willing to kill innocent people because of a greater cause? When is it? I think the decisions of going to war and committing anyone's life to that should be carefully considered, and everything should be vetted. Because listen, your greatest gift is life itself. It's life itself. And so many people have sacrificed on the battlefield to give their greatest gift for human freedom, for human striving, that you and everyone else can have a better way of life. I just like to get your feedback on what your thoughts are about us going into that conflict, and do you think it was justified? I certainly have had a change of heart. I don't think it's a huge bar or stretch to come to that conclusion. So give us a call at 1-866-620-6620. And I hear that our guest has finally decided to join us. Mr. Balfour, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So you're talking about North Carolina and its job growth and how it's changed, and the pro-growth tax reform and how it could be a prescription for the rest of the country. Please.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking here in North Carolina. Some of our legislative leaders are considering a plan to eliminate our income taxes here in North Carolina, both personal and corporate income taxes, and shift our tax structure to a much more consumption-based tax, and which means, of course, expanding the sales tax. Certainly in our case, it would be expanding the sales tax to many services that we don't currently tax, and really shifting again from taxing that kind of income-producing activities and productive activities and job creation and investment to consumption, which ample research has shown that states without the income taxes outperform other states by a wide margin over several decades. So we're really trying to take the recipe for what has worked in other states and bring it here to North Carolina.
So what went wrong? What changed between 2003 and the boom years? Is it government? Is just the natural biology of the economy? Were there some mistakes made in leadership? Just what went wrong? What lessons can we learn from there?
Yeah, well, certainly here in North Carolina, our state was a growth leader in the 1980s and 90s. We, in fact, our personal income growth was fourth highest in the nation during those decades. But since the year 2000, we have really fallen off a cliff. Basically, we're struggling with job growth, income growth. We still have the 5th highest unemployment rate in the nation, and one of the things we can certainly attribute that to is our tax burden here in North Carolina. Again, going back to the 80s and 90s, our tax burden was less than the national average, but since 2000, it's been above the national average. We've had a number of tax increases over the last dozen years, and are really kind of eating away at more of our economy and our economic decisions, and so we've been lagging our national and regional averages in job growth and income growth.
What is it that continues an economy on the growth path so you don't have these economic downturns? What are the pillars that make that possible?
Well, certainly a number of things, respect for private property and allowing people to keep more of what they earn, the proper incentive structure, not punishing success, punishing investment and people who earn a profit and create jobs with confiscatory taxes. Obviously, a stable regulatory environment, and of course, from a national perspective, you talk about monetary policy, keeping a stable, predictable unit of money. Those are certainly some of the pillars of sustained success.
How important is capitalism, and what makes capitalism best for everyone, no matter what their class may be?
Well, really, the pillar of capitalism is individual freedom and liberty, and of course with the cornerstone of that again being private property, allowing us as individuals to pursue, as it says in that great document, to pursue our happiness as we best see fit, without government and a political class trying to make decisions for us, because anytime politicians overrule our individual decisions, then economic growth is suboptimal, because we're not allowed to pursue our greatest and highest ranking desires and needs, and of course the coordination between consumers' desires and what's being produced in the economy, that gets distorted as government interferes more and more in the marketplace. So that whole coordination pattern and individual freedom to pursue our happiness and utilize our private property as we know best, those things get distorted by politicians, and it's a recipe for failure.
So why is a consumption-based tax better than the income tax?
Well, to put it simply, economic growth is based upon producing a greater abundance of goods and services to satisfy consumer needs. And then so when you contrast consumption versus production, production is what we put into the economy, what's produced, a greater abundance of goods and services, versus consumption is what we take out. So if you have a tax code that's going to impose its taxation more on one versus the other, it's much less damaging to tax that consumption end of things, because that's just what people take out of the economy. We really want to encourage productive activity and job creation and producing more goods and services to satisfy consumer needs.
How do we get people back to the entrepreneurial spirit, where that is not the minority that does it, but we become the majority? How do we get them back to the necessary skills of how we think and navigate, and how we have fiscal responsibility, and how we have a respect for thrift, and that we're accountable and responding and responsible in the things that we choose? Let's talk about this when we come back. How do we get back to creating and developing a broader entrepreneur class? I'm Armstrong Williams, and you're listening to Brian Balfour, Director of Policy and Operations. We'll be back.
Say bye-bye burgers, pass on the pizza, forget the francs. Anytime is party time. Discover Golden Cross's authentic Jamaican-style patties. Beef, chicken, vegetables, soya, spinach, and shrimp. Feast on our great taste sensations. Jerk chicken, oxtail, sliced fish, and much more. Savor the taste of the Caribbean. Only at a Golden Cross near you. A family tradition since 1949. GoldenCrossBakery.com.
For more information on the Armstrong Williams Show, please visit our new website at www.rightsidewire.com. There you can find his syndicated column archive, view live streams, and get your favorite conservative pundits' views on the current issues affecting the American people. From building wealth to foreign policy, stay connected with Armstrong Williams and his colleagues at the all-new www.rightsidewire.com.
Does your school, team, church, or charity need a new fundraiser? Do you need to work out of your home or part-time? Are you a small business that can use an additional revenue stream? Then you need Yellow Llama. Do you need affordable web services or tools to enhance your existing business? Are you a graphic artist who wants to create a revenue stream with your art but not get ripped off? Then go to www.yellowllama.com.
Anderson Brothers Bank, a family-owned and operated establishment that blends traditional personal service, local market awareness, and advanced technology to meet the financial needs of its customers. Visit abbank.com or call 843-464-6271 to see how they can assist you with your banking needs. Anderson Brothers Bank, celebrating 75 years of community banking, the way it should be. Stability right in your backyard since 1933.
America must change course if we hope to survive and save the American dream for our children and grandchildren. How do we fix Social Security and Medicare? How do we cut government spending? How do we reform health care? How do we simplify the tax code? The Heritage Foundation has a bold plan that tackles these tough problems using common sense solutions that leave partisan politics on the sidelines. Find out how we can save the American dream at savingthedream.org, paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Join the millions of Americans who pursue one of our country's finest traditions, from hunting to sport shooting. Since 1871, the NRA has grown as a service organization involved in all aspects of shooting sports and is a proud defender of the Bill of Rights. Join today to begin taking advantage of exclusive membership offers and discounts, including up to $25,000 in insurance coverage. Contact the NRA today. Call 1-800-672-3888 or visit nra.org.
Where heads of state, sports, entertainment, and political celebrities meet. You're listening to Armstrong Williams.
So, Brian Balfour, before you tell us how to create the Super Entrepreneur Class again, to reignite that, tell our audience a little about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm Director of Policy and Operations at an organization based in Raleigh, North Carolina called the Civitas Institute, and we are a research and education organization, a nonprofit here in Raleigh, focused primarily on state issues and working to facilitate the implementation of conservative public policy solutions to better the lives of North Carolinians.
So how do we create that special class that create jobs, create opportunities, build self-esteem and leadership in future generations?
Well, I think a couple of things that are really important that we need to come to realize is number one, that there needs to be public policy changes. Public policies where we have the government paying people not to work, well, don't be surprised where you see more and more people not working. On the flip side, when government is taxing those successful entrepreneurs, and the more successful entrepreneurs are, the higher tax rate they face, don't be surprised when people shy away from those more productive activities. Secondly, kind of from a more social or cultural perspective, I think there needs to be a mindset of understanding what makes entrepreneurs successful in a truly capitalist economy. And those entrepreneurs that are successful, they get there not because they're greedy or exploiting other people, but because they make the lives of other people better. Those successful business owners are the ones that produce a good or service that satisfy the needs of their consumers at a price they're willing to pay. And these voluntary arrangements, both parties are better off. And when I go and buy a product, I'm better off because of it, not because I feel I'm worse off. But meanwhile, that business owner is yielding a profit, not because he's making others worse off or exploiting them, but because he's enriching his customers.
I know you're not finished. Are you kidding me? What about the skills? What is required? What kind of experiences that prepare you for? What kind of courses do you need to take if you're in high school or college? What are some of the things that you need to read beyond high school and college? Are there things that you need to listen to prepare you for it? Because an entrepreneur never stops learning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, education is obviously a key. Whether it's learning a trade or skill or any other sort of, just learning entrepreneurial skills of how to manage a business, how to, be responsible and balance your books. Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, and education just doesn't stop. It doesn't stop, when you graduate high school or graduate college. And there's so much information out there in the modern age, it's just right at our fingertips, where people can educate themselves about the next innovation, the next great innovation, the next thing, and the skill set required to produce the goods and services that people are desiring. Really find yourself something that fits in with what you're passionate about, and if you pursue your passion, success is very likely to follow.
But do they need to have more of a strength in math or science? Do they need to read books about engineering, entrepreneurship, about medicine? Are there better books than others? Do they need to learn values? That it's not so much about having the entrepreneur skills. If you have values, if you're moral, legal, and ethical, and if you build relationships that are honest and trustworthiness, and if you have that strong network, that's what eventually becomes your net worth.
Yeah, well, I certainly think all of the above. All of the above should be in the equation, and certainly when you look at the modern technology, the modern economy, and going forward, we're in an information age where, as I mentioned, information is so readily available to people. So, kind of the high tech skills, certainly, and then from the medical industry, when you look at the aging population, there's a growing demand for people to deliver medical services and being skilled in that area. So, we can certainly, adjust to the changing times and the changing economy and project where, what skills are going to be in highest demand going forward.
What skills are in the highest demand?
Well, as I mentioned, certainly you look at some of the growth industries, again, the medical field certainly is. The information, any sort of IT type of skills are certainly in high demand going forward. A lot of the service industries, as an economy or as a culture, society grows wealthier and wealthier, they can afford to pay others for services. So there's certainly a great demand for even some of the blue-collar services, heating and air repair and things of that nature. I also, kind of interesting, I was reading recently about there's going to be a demand for farmers, of all things. The farming population in America is really aging out, and there's not a lot of folks pursuing that. So that could certainly be something of a niche for people if they're interested in that as well.
Give us the perspective on over-regulation and that employers are saddled with so much regulation, including this new Affordable Care. The tax codes have changed. How do people navigate around that? And how do you prepare for these tough times when the economy and new presidents come in and tax policies change and their signature programs are passed by Congress and become law? What advice do you have for the entrepreneur?
It's really difficult to say. And one of the things
it's not difficult for you. You have experience. It's what you know.
Well, certainly, there's a term called regime uncertainty, where entrepreneurs are unsure what the regime in Washington D.C. is going to pass and impose upon them next, and that really causes a lot of folks to sit on the sidelines. The best advice really is to really do your homework or consult with experts in the field in terms of how to, as you said, navigate those regulations. I don't think there's any easy answer other than just really doing your homework and trying to sort things out to the best of your ability.
I would expect. Listen, I think it's important. You're the expert. I'm just the host. I think it's important, especially early on in life, that if you earn $100, you must pretend as if $20 of that does not belong to you, and you don't even consider it a part of your salary or whatever, and you're always putting aside 20%, whether it's 100, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. And so later on in life, when you're 10 years later from that, the multiplier effect of that can be pretty awesome. So when you decide to do things like things you want to buy and invest and grow, if the bank turns you down because you have been physically responsible with your money and saving something, putting something aside that's growing for you, and the interest is multiplying, then you have more choices, you have more opportunities, than most people. And also, if you are on a job that you don't like, you always have the option to quit, because the one thing that money does, you should not serve money. Money should serve you. It does give you the option to walk away and do something different. When you have that freedom, you don't have to worry about how you're going to pay your overhead, how you're going to take care of your family, because you don't wait until that storm, that hiccup comes. You prepare for that early on.
Yeah, absolutely. And financial literacy, I think, is something really missing in the education, especially of our young people. If you can acquire that sense of savings and responsibility and thrift, as you were talking about, certainly at a young age, and appreciate it and come to understand that, how important that is, I think that's really vital going forward. I mean, we have, we have so many young people coming up and recent college graduates who are so deep in debt for their student loans and everything. It's difficult for them to really comprehend the importance of savings, and now they're expecting someone to come bail them out for their student loans. This sense of entitlement that someone else owes them, to pay off their student loans for them. Really something must have went wrong when they were younger, in terms of their education and financial literacy, and understanding that personal responsibility and savings for themselves, for their retirement, for a rainy day, and so forth. So I think that's something really missing from what we're educating, how we're educating our children.
If you had to set up a curriculum, and I know we're about out of time, for kids in high school and college, what would be mandatory of courses that they would take?
Well, I'm biased a little bit towards economics. That's my background,
and that's my background. I'm biased towards economics.
Right. I think there's a gross illiteracy in terms of economics in this country, and it leads to really poor public policies. Policies that are devastating on people's lives and our economy. So that would certainly be one thing that I would want to see taught more. And again, the financial literacy, as I was mentioning, I'd like to see that certainly beefed up a lot more. And then just certainly some of the more, kind of 21st century skills in terms of technology, and getting people kids more and more familiar with the information technology that's out there that they're going to be dealing with, and what other people are the knowledge they're going to have, folks that they're going to be competing with in the job market.
Your final thoughts, because literally we have about a minute left. You've been such a wonderful guest, but I just think you're holding back. There's so much more that you know, and you're making me work so hard to get information out of you.
Well, I don't mean to. I'm just, I'm excited about opportunities here in North Carolina in terms of tax reform, and I think there's a great opportunity here in our state and other states to reform our tax codes and really kind of counteract a lot of the tax increases that are being imposed upon us from Washington, D.C. So, just really excited about the opportunity here in North Carolina and other states for tax reform, and to really try to start turning our economy around. I mean, too many people, too many families have been devastated by this ongoing recession for too long, and we need to start getting better answers coming from our state capital, certainly, and Washington, D.C. as well. Do you see any hope on the horizon? Nationally, I think it's going to be difficult, real difficult. But certainly, there's some good potential at the national level, and certainly, I'm really excited about what's going on in the state capitals. I think the issue of states' rights is becoming more and more prominent, and really restoring America to these 50 states, the laboratories of democracy, as they once were labeled. I think the great experimentation in the states, and states can compete for better, more superior policies. I think that would be a great way to counteract, even if we do continue to see poor policies coming out of D.C.
I can't thank you enough for joining us. Your website address?
nccivitas.org.
nccivitas, CIVITAS?
Yes, sir.
.org. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All the best. And thank you for joining us for this edition of the Armstrong Williams Show. Take care.
For more information on the